Hey everybody, this is the Marine with Backpacking with a Hammock. When people are hammock camping, they may face many different challenges, and the biggest challenge is the weather. They may be enjoying this experience in the great outdoors when out of nowhere all of a sudden it starts to rain, and their enjoyment turns to misery, or it could also lead to a disastrous situation. Now in this third episode of Hammocks and the 3 big mistakes people often make, we're going to look at some of those challenges and how to overcome them. Now the first big mistake when hammock camping we're going to look at is you plan this epic trip. The weather report said it's not going to rain. You venture out into the wilderness, and after a beautiful day of hiking and camping, and you're sitting by the fire and you look up and it's a clear sky and there's millions of stars out there, and you think, wouldn't it be great to lie in my hammock and just look at the stars falling asleep? The weatherman said it wasn't going to rain, or the weather person to be politically correct. And they're never wrong, they never make mistakes, they never lie. So you decide not to set up the tarp and you're gonna lie in your hammock and just watch this Gallic Symphony, which is an epic experience. And you fall asleep peacefully, and then you wake up and you notice it's raining. So you get up and you're trying to find your tarp and you're trying to set it up and you're fumbling and stumbling in the dark. Now you may have just started the trip, you may be many miles away from your car or many days from coming back to the car to your starting point, and your down gets soaking wet. This could be disastrous, especially if the temperature drops. Now I'm not saying you should never hammock camp without setting your tarp up. I believe one of the greatest experiences is not having a tarp set up and watching the night sky. And I highly recommend on a clear night, a new moon or a dark of the moon, is to go without the tarp, but you have to be prepared for rain. And we're going to look at 3 ways to set up to be prepared. Now for these 3 techniques, the first thing you want to do is to set up the tarp. Now that you have the tarp set up, the first technique we're going to look at is storing the tarp in the snakeskin. So we're going to take the tarp and put it into the snakeskin. I'm sleeping, I wake up and it's raining. What I want to do is deploy this tarp as quickly as I can, and with this technique it's really quick to set up this tarp. Now the next technique we're going to use is using Velcro instead of using a snake skin to hold the tarp up. Now you can buy this Velcro at any department store, and what you want to do is cut out 3-foot long sections, and that's what you're going to use. Now again, if you're sleeping, you wake up, it's raining, you get up and you take off those Velcro straps and set up your tarp. Now the third and the last technique that we're going to use is you just take half the tarp and you fold it over the other half. So now with this technique, with your head being on this side laying diagonal, you want the tarp over on the other side. This way I can see pretty much the whole sky. And if it starts raining, you just get up, you pull the tarp over, and now just stake it down. Now if you plan on sleeping with the tarp down to see the stars, I highly recommend that you use these 3 techniques. Make sure the tarp is ready to go. If not, it could be a very big mistake. Now a question I get asked a lot is, why not just use a sleeping bag? Meaning no other type of insulation underneath you, just a sleeping bag by itself. And that leads us to our second big mistake. Now unless you're going to be lying in a hammock where the temperatures are 68 degrees or 19 Celsius and above, you'll be just fine. But when the temperatures drop below 68 degrees and 19 Celsius, you are going to need some type of insulation underneath you to keep you warm. The reason why hammocks stay so cool is that they're suspended in the open, where circulating air convection robs heat from all around, and that's why you need a little something extra underneath you. Now, unless you have a thick, heavy synthetic sleeping bag, you may be able to get down to 60 degrees, 15 Celsius, and if you're a warm sleeper, you may be able to go below that. But if you have a down sleeping bag, you definitely want some type of insulation underneath you. Now, the reason is down sleeping bags will have chambers sewn in them that are filled with down. Your body heat will heat up those down chambers, which traps the heat in there, which in return will keep you warm. The larger in height the chambers are filled with down, the more warmth is provided. For an example, a 3-inch or 7.5 centimeter thickness of a down chamber will keep you warm down to 40 degrees or 4 Celsius. Now, a 6-inch or a 17 centimeter of thickness of a down chamber will get you down between 0 degrees to 10 degrees or -17 to -12 Celsius. But now when you lie on those down chambers underneath you with your body weight, they are flattened down to nothing, which is what you get for insulation underneath you. Now, inside the sleeping bag, my top and my sides are warm, but with my body weight flattening out those down chambers, I can feel it starting to get a little chilly underneath me. So the way to use your sleeping bag is you're going to have some type of insulation underneath you. And some of the types are a closed foam mat, a wool blanket, even a sheepskin rug works well. But the best way is an underquilt, which can be very expensive, but they're the most effective. Now, one of the biggest struggles people have hammock camping is setting up and camping in the rain, which is a wonderful experience, but if done wrong, it could lead to a disaster, which brings us to our third big mistake, and that's not having the proper water breaks. When it rains, it's amazing how and where water will travel. Water has some special properties which makes it a unique substance. It has both strong cohesive and adhesive properties. What this means is that the water will stick to itself, cohesion, and to other things, adhesion. So when your suspension gets wet, the water runs down your suspension right into your hammock, unless you have some type of object to stop it. Now, we're going to look at 2 ways to stop the water from running down your suspension into your hammock. The first one is some type of a water break. A water break basically is some type of hardware on your suspension that attaches or adjusts your hammock. Some of these would be a carabiner, a whoopee hook, or a cinch buckle, or it may be some type of a knot like a Beckett hitch or a marlin spike. But what is very important is that the water break must be underneath the tarp. If not, the water will run down the other side down into your hammock. If the water break is not underneath your tarp, you will need a second way to stop the water from running down the suspension into your hammock, and that is called a drip line. The drip line is some type of cordage tied in some type of knot onto your suspension underneath the tarp. So when the water runs down it, it acts like a water break. Now the water will hit the knot and be redirected down to the loose end, and the water will drip to the ground, hence the drip line. Now you can use any type of cordage. I'm going to be using Zing-It, and you can use any knots, but I'm going to show you the 2 most popular knots. And they are a simple overhand loop knot, and my favorite, the Persic knot. If you'd like more information on hammocks and hammock camping, I did a video series called Hammocks, the Beginner's Guide, and I believe this will be very helpful for you. If you like this video, please hit that like button down below and please share. And if you found this video to be informative and helpful, please hit that subscribe button. That just notifies you when the next video is coming out. And if you have any questions, please write them down below. I'd love to hear from you. This is the Marine with Backpacking with a Hammock. Thank you for watching, and God bless.